is pin 1 right here. Then this would be pin 2, pin 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So these have corresponding pins. And these wires are attached to those pins, and you have to know what's going where. You can't just slap anything anywhere figuring, oh, I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to go and solder, according to the schematic that's provided, I'm going to solder these to the appropriate place on the printer port connector. So here we go with that one. As you can see, everything's soldered in over here, and everything's all hooked up over here. Now what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to try to verify that all of this works before piecing together a hood for here, and the hood on here just screws on. So I'm going to go over on the software side off camera, make sure that this all works before going on to the next step.
There's a lot of great free software out there that you can use to actually be the drivers for the hardware that you just built. Now, a lot of these interfaces, the hardware is relatively identical, but there are key differences in the drivers themselves. Some of the drivers that you can use is PSXPad, DirectPad Pro, SNES Pad, SNES Key, and NT-Pad. Now, although some of these names imply that they're for Super Nintendo only, they're not. They actually do almost every single classic console. Now, NT-Pad is really good if you're running Windows XP and NT 4 and 2000, but it has a tendency of actually crashing my computer. I don't know, it could just be me. PSXPad is really great. That's the one I'll be showing you in a few moments. PSXPad is great. It's really simple to install. However, the instructions to build a lot of the interfaces are not in English, they're in Spanish. So the instructions are very simple, and even despite it being in non-English, it's really easy to construct. It's very easy to understand. And DirectPad Pro is great if you have like a Win32, like Windows 95, Windows 98. It'll work on Windows XP, but it's mostly for the older Windows operating systems. SNES Pad and SNES Key are mostly for the DOS age. I'm assuming that if you're into Linux, you really don't give a crap for getting a console controller on your computer, but don't fret. There is software out there. Peg us on the forums or check us out on IRC, and we'll try to help you out. Anyway, I've already installed PSXPad, but I'm going to run through an installation anyway. It's really straightforward. Okay, we want to install a Super Nintendo controller, standard, one controller. Of course, it's going to give me a bitch and moan about the addresses because they're in use already, because it's already installed, and it's going to complain about unsigned drivers. And yes, you want to continue anyway installing this game port. Now, the one thing I like about this is a lot of laptops, I don't know if any, they don't have game ports, and this is what I use on all of my laptops as a game controller. So we go ahead to our control panel, which we already have open, I just noticed. Anyway, we go to our PSXPad properties, and we try all our axes to make sure our interface is still working. It seems like all of our buttons are working. Now, the only thing we have to do at this point is finish constructing the hood and connectors of the interface, and configuring our software to do whatever we like.
I verified that the circuit works and the controller's functional. And if you're smart enough to go and put this project together, I'm not going to have to explain how to put the parallel port hood on. But when it comes to creating the hood for the actual connector, you can use one of two things. You can use plumber's epoxy, or what they call putty epoxy, or you can use hot glue. I'll have a preview of the hot glue in a minute, but the putty epoxy comes in two compounds, just like regular epoxy. It comes in a resin and a hardener, and it works just like clay and hardens as just like steel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to piece together a hood using putty epoxy. I've mixed together 2 equal parts of putty epoxy with the resin and the hardener. Now it's just like using clay. Basically, just blib it on and work it around until you have the connector you want. Being very, very careful not to permanently epoxy this to your controller. That would be bad. At this point, if you actually want to get artistic with how it looks and be very anal retentive, want to get it square, round, triangle, what the hell ever, this is up to you. I'm not going to give you an in-detail explanation of how to use plumber's epoxy or putty epoxy. The instructions are right on the packaging of whatever brand you get, and if you can use Play-Doh or clay, you can use this stuff. You have about 5 minutes until it actually hardens. It actually starts to harden. The only thing I'd recommend to use, like you probably saw me doing with this thing, is use it to make like a slice around your connector, so it doesn't grip onto the actual connection itself, like onto the hood of the Super Nintendo controller. At this point, I'm just going to wait 5 minutes and wait till it starts to harden a bit more before working it at all. Now, as for making the connector, make sure all your pins aren't connecting. And what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to make a small little like bridge clip, if possible, just to fill in this gap over here, because the hot glue is not gonna, it's just gonna kind of sink underneath that. And you know what? Saggy tits might look good on your grandma, but saggy connections don't look good on electronics. So we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna get liberal with the hot glue. Now I have to warn you, this hot glue sucks. It's like the cheapest stuff I could find. I'm not a hot glue person. So we're just gonna smear this crap on here. And we're gonna let it sit. Okay, this has been sitting for about a minute and a half, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to flip it over, because if you notice, it's starting to kind of blob down the other way, and now we're going to cover the other end. Keeping in mind, if you use putty epoxy, this works a lot easier. It's so much easier to manage, and I would highly recommend it over hot glue. But you work with what you got. Don't use Play-Doh. Play-Doh does not work. If you you want smooth edges, what you should do is go and get a small flat piece of metal or plastic, something that's smooth and non-porous, and you basically just smush it in between. Here, I got a thin flat metal plate. I'm just going to put it underneath and press into it a little bit, just to kind of flatten it out and get all the saggy pieces to stop sagging a bit. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the top. If you notice, as soon as you apply that, like the hot glue is still soft and pliable right now, so it would be a great time to actually sit there and try to mold it a little bit. But still, this is not the finished connector. The finished connector is going to be way, 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 way bigger than this. But it's hard to do because we have no supports on the side to build on. So, just keep taking your hot glue and building up until you have a connector that you're happy with. You know, this is more of an art, and it takes a little bit of skill to do. But once you get the hang of it, you'll actually be able to build, you know, custom connectors and, you know, whatever the hell else with a hot glue gun with no problem. Like, really, this is a no-brainer. Doesn't require too much skill. Just takes a lot of hot glue. Now, you could just cut your controller's cable and directly solder the controller directly into the printer port. But I think that's sacrilege. You really shouldn't destroy one of those old classic console controllers just to get it working on your computer. No. Forgot to trim these sons of bitches off. Here we have the finished product. Over here we have the hot glue version. Over here we have the epoxy version. Both do the same thing in the long run. As you can see, it really doesn't take much to just have a printer port connector, a couple of everyday diodes, some wire, household stuff, and interface one of your console controllers to your computer's printer port. There's also available for PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1, Xbox, GameCube. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but you know, a lot of people actually just have a standard console controller laying around. Now you can use it on your computer. So if you decide to do this and you need any help, go to the show notes or peg us on the forums or on IRC. Have fun and good luck.